Hi, Trevor here, reflecting on life through music. Thank you for stopping by. Well, I trust you enjoyed my last video on the father of pop and multi-collaborator Georgio Moroder. And through a few of his iconic songs, we looked at how important music is in capturing our emotions. And in fact, it's our emotions that play music if you're a muso. So I trust you found that one encouraging. Well, we're going on to Georgia, Ella and Clara today. These three grew up on a family farm in Adelaide in South Australia. This is where this video has been recorded. And they jammed, and they well and truly soon discovered that she really enjoyed music. They were inspired by some records in their parents' music collection, including B.B. King and Van Morrison and Cat Stevens. And Dad had actually played trumpet in some New Orleans clubs, and so they understand from an early age how important playing live music is. And it wasn't long before these three girls, Georgia was establishing herself as a pretty talented songwriter and guitarist and singer. Ella taught herself bass and Clara taught herself drums. And from that, around 2012, the Germein sisters were formed, or I think it's called Germein now. Now, their live performance have been described as mesmerising and euphoric. So, when these girls play live, they're absolutely amazing, and they really give their audiences an experience, because one of the great things about Germein is their thought-provoking lyrics and the way that they bring these lyrics along. They're very tight musically, these three, and we'll get on to some very tight music in a minute. When I mean tight, what I'm actually saying is they actually play really well in time with each other. And when a band is tight, that means they're really it's just absolutely perfect. And these guys have been seen as perfect. Germein have toured extensively overseas at Europe, but these girls, they're originally they're only in their 20s really at this point. Toured Europe, China, New Zealand, and of course Australia. And they released their first album, and that included, by the way, a 2018 15-date stadium tour in the UK. So that's pretty significant right there. To do a 15-date tour in the UK, you're kind of getting noticed, and the world has kind of noticed these girls a bit. Because You Breathe, the album came out in 2013, and that was actually recorded in Ireland. So that's pretty cool to get that kind of influence from overseas people. And it's followed up with the self-titled album Germein, when they kind of renamed themselves from the Germein sister to just Germein. They brought out that album in 2019. These guys in South Australia have won a couple of SA Music People's Choice Awards in 2019 and 2020. And so, they've been able to get quite a following in Australia and also around the world. Of course, they were going to embark on that tour back in 2020, but we all know what happened then, and they had to put that on hold for a while. But they have been popping up into all sorts of places. I reckon these guys are going to be reporting the callers when they come out to Australia. So that's absolutely massive right there. Now, as I've been doing of late, we've got some clips below which I'll refer to as we go. So to get the ball rolling, before the Germein sisters, there was Georgia doing her thing on her own. She was, as I said, very accomplished singer-songwriter, has received awards for songwriting. And so we've got a bit of a live gig here at the age of 18, and she's just singing a bit of a uni day in 2010, and we can already see here that there's some really grounded lyrics here, because obviously university is all about finding yourself, finding your future, finding many things, and to sort of ask the question of who are you in that scenario is pretty brave thing to do, but so important in a university life. So we've got a live version of Georgia Germein. We then got the song Talking. This is a live version of this one. You get to see this guitar work at the start. It's pretty amazing. And when they really get into the song, they're really tight and quite compelling on stage. You can see their big letters, their name is in big letters behind them here. So they're pretty much a headline act these days. And here you can also see the rocky edge that these girls have got to them. But I think it's a song talking I wanted to bring up a little bit more today, because one of the lines of this song is, I don't feel like talking today since your feet went walking. So I don't know if anyone else has had this feeling. Perhaps you're in a relationship and you might need to say something and you don't want to because it's scary to do so. You don't know how it's going to go. So your inner thought goes something like this: hey, I've got this thing to say. It's really, really bothering me. You might have thought of previous times when it hasn't gone so well. You're thinking, oh, well, I really, really need to say it. But then you think, well, perhaps I won't worry. I'll just let it ride. And then, 1 to 2 weeks later, you're feeling really, really, really frustrated because you hadn't been able to get your words out. And it might get to the point where that process just becomes quite automatic. So you just go straight from the idea to just not talking. Because you know what? If there is not a receiving spirit on the other end of conversation, the one that will sit down and listen, and one that will sit down and understand and try to sort this stuff out, there's just no point, is there? Because you think, well, there's no point me saying anything because it's not going to matter. Can be a pretty tricky space to be in, that one. And I think what we all need to, because I would reckon that when you are actually feeling that way, you might also be in a situation where you're creating that for the other person as well. Now, you don't really want to hear that when you're struggling to get your words out, but I reckon it can go back the other way as well. But if you're on the receiving end of someone trying to tell you something, and it might not be something pleasant, it might be something that's a bit frustrating, because do we think relationships are perfect all the time? Well, they're not. And at some point, things need to be said. There might be something you discover you've made. You know how to let your guard down with something and you're letting the person really in, and the other person doesn't understand what's going on. I think it's really, really important that we constantly check in with each other about how we're going. And then, we can address what's called the elephant in the room. If there's an elephant in the room that's making you both walk on eggshells, well, it's better to address that elephant than not. But, the scary thing in this very vulnerable moment of having conversations like this one is you just don't know how it's going to go. There is a reliance and a trust on the other person being in a receptive mood, having the time to stop and listen, having the time to realise that this stuff's important. Obviously, you just don't do it when you're just walking past. You kind of say, hey, I'd really like to have a chat to you about something. When can we do it? Can we do it soon? Because, I'm going to check it out before I do, but I really need to chat to you about something. Well, do you remember some of the sitcoms? They used to say, now here's the thing. It's not a bad way of introducing something like this, I'm thinking. And so if you're in that position right now where you're thinking, oh, I really, really want to say something, but I really, really don't know how to, how do we break that deadlock? I don't know. It's a challenge. It's something that I've always struggled with myself. When we have something to say, but we don't know how to say it, or we don't know how it's going to be received, it can be a challenge. And we end up just zipping our lip most of the time. Well, that's not going to help our relationship. So maybe another way to look at it is to say, hey, look, I struggle to say this stuff. Just be honest with them. Say, look, I'm really struggling here. I need to say something, but I'm scared. Let's get out of my mind here about this. Can we please sit and explore this thing? Because I really need to talk to you. Because the last thing I want to do is to not feel like talking. Because a relationship requires all of who we are, not just the passionate bit, but the intellectual and when the bits go wrong stuff, and all of it's required for a relationship to work. And if you start holding things back, it's only going to be a matter of time before the relationship probably ends, because you end up having nothing to talk about. Because one of the things about talking is that it also makes it easier to talk about more easy generic things like, hey, do you want to go to the pictures tonight? Well, the automatic thing could be, hey, I won't suggest that because it's not going to go very well. We don't want to get to that point, do we? We really, really don't. And so if you are the person struggling to get your words out, try and do something in the next 48 hours to try and change that. If you're on the receiving end of this stuff, and I'm surely you would know there's something going on, you're going to have to humble yourself. It may be some stuff which might not be nice to hear, but what would you prefer? To hear it or to have the relationship end? This is the challenge of this song today, absolutely. So I trust that will all be a bit of an encouragement to you. Life is complicated, relationships are tricky, communication can always be better, always. And maybe if you meet someone new, get the habits in there at the start. How are we going to deal with things when they come up? What are we going to do about it? How can we create a mood of receptivity and understanding right from the start? Because, relationships are all very rosy at the start, but, it won't be too long before something comes up. So it's important to create those habits from the start so that talking happens. Not talking at someone, you're talking with them. Absolutely. So we've got a live version of talking. We then got 100 years. This is a bit of a TV video clip. It looks like these guys just popped into this mob called Toaster TV. And it's a bit of a live acoustic version here. And one of the lines is, I hope I do something right. 100 years, that's a long time to live. Well, not that we live that long normally, but, we do live decades at times. What can we do to make our life the best it can be? So we've got a live version of that one. Then we've got a live version, actually the official clip of 21, I just remembered. But interesting clip, this one. It's all about colour. And I think, as we discovered with another video I did recently, that colour is really, really important because we are colourful people. We're full of all sorts of things, the reds, the yellows, the greens, the blues. And all of us, and amongst of all of that, we've got hopes and dreams we're wanting to fulfill as well. So at the age of 21, you're looking to 22 and 23 and 24 thinking, hey, I'm hoping that I'm going to be here by 22 and 23 as opposed to back here at 21. But at the same time, what am I learning at the age of 21? Because, what can I do now to make 22, 23 and 24 easier? There's a very enlightening songwriting from Georgia right there about her future and what she's expecting. So the links to those, how many we got? 1, 2, 3, 4 clips are in the description below. And I've also included my last video from Georgio Moroder, the iconic Georgio Moroder. So if you want to recap on him, feel free. Well, if you've come back for another one, as we've looked at this concept of talking and the automatic processes that we go through when we sometimes don't get our words out because it's tricky to do so. Hey, I'm right with you on that, by the way. I struggle with this stuff big time. So if a relationship comes along one day, I'll be trying to get habits in there at the start to make it a bit easier for the both of us. We need to be able to talk about anything, by the way. And it's not in the big things, often in the small things. Hey, did you see that really cool car going down the road? Or, hey, what do you think about that? Or, hey, how's this restaurant? What do you really, really think? Do you think we should really, really try it? Are you happy with it? Use every moment as a talking, collaborative moment. And relationships can be kind of built on these small moments. So when the big things happen, it's easy, as opposed to the other way around. So, so if you've come back, this is your first time, the Life Reflections through Music, thank you to everyone for coming back and all the rest of it. It's so good to see you all here. And I trust you've enjoyed this little video from Adelaide. Now, we love these girls in Adelaide at Germein. So that's it for today. Next time, we're going to go on to Deborah Allen. So until then, I'll catch you around. Bye for now.